All right, joining me now to discuss all of this is Joel Rubin, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of the State for the Obama administration. We've seen the success in about the South about 2 weeks ago, and now in the Northeast with dozens of towns being recaptured. So what area could follow as a target for Ukraine during this time?
Well, Marcel, what we're witnessing and what you've aptly demonstrated is that there is a turnaround occurring right now on the ground, that this is a watershed moment in this war. Ukrainian forces have been preparing for nearly 2 months for this counteroffensive. So this didn't just happen overnight. This was a planned and organized offensive. What they're doing right now is they're backfilling. They're trying to hold that territory in the northeast, into the eastern areas that were occupied by Russia for 6 months, and trying to make sure that Russia can't return to those spots while Russia does retreat into the south, which is ultimately where Ukraine wants to go. But for now, the primary objective is to rout the Russian forces as much as possible in the east and to hold that territory that they have regained from the Russian troops.
Yeah, Joel, and I've been reading that these towns that have been recaptured have a huge significance in this war. Getting back that territory in itself is a huge win, but how could getting back the territories like Kharkiv and ISM, what can that do for Ukraine?
Well, at the top of the line, it's a massive morale boost for Ukraine and an incredibly demoralizing moment for Russia. These are strategic areas. These are areas where a supply would come through for Russia from Russia proper, and now these are lost. So Russia is going to have a harder time with its supply routes while it is also in retreat. But for Ukraine, as the ambassador said in the clip that you had earlier, Ukraine now feels like it can win. Mm-hmm. And what we have seen over the last several months is a concerted effort in terms of both military supply by the United States and our allies and training and support on logistics for the Ukrainian military that is bearing fruit. And it's only going to accelerate. It's not going to reduce. And that is something that Moscow has to understand is very threatening to its presence in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, let's talk more about that support you just mentioned right now. Just last month, our Department of Defense announced nearly $3 billion to help out and support Ukraine. Could we see maybe more funding for Ukraine as it gains this strength against Russia?
Yeah, we most certainly will. The Biden administration, since the president came into office, has spent roughly $15 billion in terms of military expenditure for Ukraine. Last week, $1 billion was included in that foreign military financing. That's a long-term military partnership program that is governed by the State Department. So the funds are being spent. They're being spent well, and they're going to continue to flow. But this is a small price to pay. It's not small money. I don't want to minimize that, but it's a small price to pay for the independence of a country right there on the border of Europe. That is not just under duress, but all of Europe is feeling the pressure. Russia is taking out its aggression, not just on the Ukrainian people, but also on the European people, holding hostage its energy supply, on the global community, holding hostage wheat supplies. So this has to be repelled, and that $15 billion is part of that investment.
Most definitely. Now, part of that also includes intelligence sharing. It has been a huge key to helping out Ukraine during this war. Actually, combing through a Washington Post article reported that American intelligence officials shared they often had a better understanding of Russia's military plan than Ukraine. So how concerned should this detail be for Ukraine at this time?
Well, right now, intelligence, we're learning in many different quarters how important it is and how sensitive classified information can be. I don't want to go into the Mar-a-Lago discussion, but just to say that the United States, we have significant assets. The Ukrainians depend on that. There has been counterintelligence back and forth between Ukraine and Russia for decades. This has been an ongoing dispute between these two countries. They spy on each other extensively. What we are seeing and what the United States has been able to do is to publicly unveil intelligence before the actions happen. That was in the run-up to the war in December and in January and February when the United States was saying Russia is going to invade. Even President Zelensky of Ukraine wasn't fully convinced. But by doing that, we mobilize the global community. And so that's likely going to be the pace going forward is identifying damaging assessments and making them public to try to undercut Russia's ability to have an effective aggression into Ukraine.
Yeah, Joel, we've also talked about this subject on our show multiple times. Everything going on with Zaporizhia is very concerning at this time. What's going to happen now? Is there anything that we can do at this time to help out that situation? Because it seems like it's getting worse.
Well, one thing we can do, which I think I'm really happy you asked that question, is we can support our international agencies that do the kind of monitoring and oversight that the International Atomic Energy Agency does, the IAEA. It's a multilateral organization. It matters. It provides the kind of intelligence and insight and technical support that we need when a party like the United States or Europe may not be able to get into that location because Russia would view that as active combat. So the IAEA, it's central. They're trying to negotiate some type of an agreement of a ceasefire, a buffer zone around. We need to support those efforts, support the international community efforts to try to bring peace and stability to these hotspots like Zaporizhia, and more overall, support these kinds of multilateral institutions like the United Nations as well that really do provide a critical role in international peace and stability.
Yeah, peace and stability is what we definitely need. Joel Rubin, thank you so much for this insight and your perspective here on our show. We definitely appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Marcel.